asking for your vote again. But has he earned it? Chief Political Correspondent Emma Withrow has his political report card.
Congressman Dan Bishop is serving his second term on Capitol Hill, but he's been in politics for almost 2 decades.
Tonight is a victory shared by all who believe in the promise of America.
He started his political career right here in Charlotte as a Mecklenburg County Commissioner.
Good evening again. I'm Dan Bishop. I represent District 5, Southeast Charlotte.
After 2 terms on the board, he went on to serve on both sides of the North Carolina General Assembly. Bishop promised voters in a 2019 special election for his current congressional seat he wouldn't shapeshift.
And I share your values. I'm not ashamed of your values. I'm going to defend your values in Washington, D.C.
But has he remained consistent?
My responsibility is to define who I am and what values I defend and advance, tell people about them, and if it's a match, they elect me, and if it's not a match, then they don't. And many others in politics, I think, will constantly sort of shift their story. I don't do that.
Back in 2016, Bishop sponsored North Carolina's controversial bathroom bill.
We passed a law that restores common sense, establishes in public buildings a traditional bathroom use policy.
The law faced swift backlash and was repealed, but now almost 5 years later, Bishop still stands by his intent of the bill.
People may still look at me and say, no, you're wrong on this point, but at least we can have that honest debate, and I'm never proceeding out of fear or the need for me to stay in a job.
But taking a hard stance on divisive issues can make it difficult to achieve bipartisanship.
Republicans will keep fighting for the American people.
Out of North Carolina's Republican representatives, Bishop co-sponsored the fewest number of bills written by Democrats.
You should never abandon principles on which you've told the public you'll go to Washington and fight for them in order to have bipartisan opportunity.
Bishop had only been in office for 5 months when the coronavirus pandemic hit. His constituents in the 9th District had a long list of concerns.
At the time, I sat on the Small Business Committee, so we turned our entire staff into getting the word out, particularly to people who are in small, humble businesses, small restaurants across my district. Much of it is rural, that didn't have a strong banking relationship and didn't understand what help might be available, to try to get through that time when government did need to throw resources at an emergency.
Bishop now sits on the House Judiciary Committee and is directing his attention towards some of the ripple effects the pandemic has had on his district. Mask mandates in schools being one of them, which left many parents angry and hostile at school board meetings.
You do not have the right to dictate my health or my children's health. I'm ashamed of you.
In some instances, school board members were threatened, which led the Department of Justice to launch a task force to investigate any threats of violence.
It's a very, very dangerous use of government power that is alien to the foundations of America. I want to work on bringing that security state back under appropriate control of the people, and that's something that the Judiciary Committee has jurisdiction over. So that'll be a focus of mine going forward.
They got 10 people.
Threats of violence became a reality on January 6th when hundreds of rioters breached the Capitol, resulting in 5 people dead and many injured.
The great majority of the people who came to Washington to participate in the protests were doing what Americans can and should do. That's what their right is, to participate in political protests, petition their government for redress.
Bishop had to hide in the House chamber alongside his colleagues when glass broke and shots were fired. Yet he voted against forming a bipartisan commission to investigate the assault. I asked him why.
Because it was a sham, actually. The Democrats were going to control all the staff, and they would then control sort of the agenda and what got presented, what got asked about, what got ignored. And so that was a sham that needed to be called out.
If he gets reelected in 2022, Congressman Dan Bishop plans on continuing to call people out and speak his mind. I asked Congressman Bishop, what grade would you give yourself based off your performance so far? He said he thinks he's made excellent progress, but his official report card will be released by the voters on November 8th, 2022. So if you voted for Dan Bishop, the candidate, Dan Bishop, the congressman, is so far as advertised. Coming up next week, I'm serving up a midterm report card for South Carolina Congressman Ralph Norman. In the studio, Emma Withrow, Fox 46.